Put this on the tables, please. Thank you.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
So just so that I've got it sort of kind of right. So median comes from Torah, and it is the thing that empowers, but yeah, maybe empowers all the other, which influences all the other spirits.
Right. In other words, in a way, it's the source of all the other seven klippas.
Right.
All the seven klippas are klippa in a specific direction, a specific energy, anger, or love, or this or that. And what's the source of it all is division and separation. That's where it all comes from.
So do the source of the seven like leaders of Tigla exist side by side or outside of the seven spirits of Kedusha? How do they?
It's like branches of a tree. It's as if to say the midyan, which is the division, the separation. That's the root, and the seven it branches out in seven different directions.
So how does the yeshus
Right. No, so the bittul is the opposite of yeshus, and you wanted to bring out the point that yeshus is not a certain detail of something that's klipa, but in a certain sense, yeshus is the very definition of klipa. Klipa is separation from Hashem. Separation from Hashem means I want to establish my own identity. That's what does yeshus mean? Yeshus means to when I say to inflate the ego, it's all about being more than an independent identity. Independent identity, by definition, means detaching from Hashem, from the source. Kedusha is all about connecting to the source. That's bittul. And klipa is all about detaching from the source and becoming my own identity.
So yeshus is associated with Miriam?
Midyan, right. So the nation Midyan down here is a manifestation of that spiritual source in Tohu, which is Yeshus. And Yeshus is the source of all the seven. The seven different attributes are manifestations, different manifestations of Yeshus.
So if Yeshus used interchangeably with medium, is it the same thing?
In other words, I wouldn't say that Yeshus is Midyan, but Midyan is Yeshus. In other words, Midyan is the name of a nation. Let's not forget that. It's the name of a nation. And going deeper, it's a name of a klipa. And what is this klipa? It's Yeshus. So if you see the word Yeshus being used somewhere, it doesn't necessarily mean Midyan, right? Because sometimes Yeshus can manifest in a different way. Midyan is when it manifests in separation. And in a sense, that's sort of more the core of Yeshus than anything else. Because what it is separation from Hashem will automatically lead separation from one another. Why? Because if I'm separate from Hashem, it means I want to establish my own identity. Establish my own identity will also mean that I won't leave room for others, or others get in my way. And that creates a division between one person and another. Someone who is connected to Hashem, bittul, if they're connected to Hashem, everything else is connected to Hashem, so it becomes one with everyone else and everything else.
So yeshus is a characteristic of medium?
Yeah.
Or
Yeshus is the
like a
Yeshus
manifestation?
no, million is a manifestation of Yeshus.
Ah, okay.
Like think of it as a child or a teenager that's wants to become independent from their parents. So it's about I want to detach from that authority, and therefore I'll do everything to establish my own identity, which is by being different and separating myself. Anything I do because they want me to do it, then I'm connecting. I don't want to connect. I want to be my own person. So how am I my own person? Whatever they say day, I say night. They say go, I say stop. They say stop, I say go, because that's how I establish my own identity. So just think of that on a higher plane. It's the same idea that separation from Hashem means wanting to define myself as my own identity. So that's Yeshus. As we go along, we'll probably get a better understanding of what it is. And I mean, it's a matter of finding the right words, the right vocabulary to really explain it. Because this is a Chassidish vocabulary. You won't find it in the Webster's dictionary. So we have to find words in English that will somehow be closer to express what Yeshus really means. So we covered the first 4 chapters. I really would like to go into to review them. So the review is in the second booklet. By the way, we have a new surprise in town, and that is that they just published this booklet in the format of Lessons in Tanya for the first time in history.
What is that?
Heichaltzu, yeah. So I ordered them for the class. They're going to come today, and it'll be much easier to follow. You have, just like in Tanya, you have the Hebrew, then the English, Hebrew, English. It's so much easier to follow. But we'll still need the booklet for the review, for the questions and the sources and all that. So let's review this briefly, and then we'll go on to the next chapter. So we'll do it together. The first chapter is on page 64 in the second booklet. What are the 2 questions raised in this chapter? So the 2 questions were, why is it that the war with Midian had to be fought only by Moshe? Why couldn't this war be fought by Moshe's successor? That's question number 1. And question number 2 is, it appears that Moshe Rabbeinu, to perfect his neshama, needed to fight this war. So basically, the war needed Moshe, and Moshe needed the war. These are the 2 questions. Why does the war need only Moshe? And the second question is, why does Moshe Rabbeinu need to fight this war to bring his neshama to its perfection? It was the last thing that he had to do before his passing. That's page 64. Let's go to page 65. That's chapter 2. What are the 5 questions in this chapter? So these questions are more grammatical questions. First of all, I would write like this, just briefly. Number 1, you can write one word. What is the purpose of revenge? And what kind of war is it? Just to take revenge. It's not conquering land. It's not It's not eliminating the threat, it's just to take revenge. What's the purpose in that kind of war? The second question was, here it says we're taking revenge for Havaya, and here it says we're taking revenge for Yidden. Which is it?
Which one page?
65 in the second booklet.
What are the 5 questions?
Right. So one question is, first question was, what is the purpose of a war for taking revenge? You're going too far, it's right in the beginning.
No, I think it's missing from her booklet.
Yeah, take another one.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, that's the wrong book. It's this
Here, this is it.
one.
So that's one question.
Is that what was the first question, Ella?
First question was, what is the purpose of a war to take revenge? What kind of objective is that? There are wars to conquer land. There are wars to fight an enemy that's threatening us. But this was neither. This was a war just to take revenge. What does that mean? The other question was, in one place it says taking revenge for Havaya. In another place it says taking revenge for Yisrael, for the Yidden. How do we reconcile these two sources? Another thing is, point number 3, that it appears that Midyan is a klipa that is in direct opposition specifically of the name Havaya. So the question is, why? There are different names of Hashem, but this is specifically opposes Shem Havaya. And then there are 2 questions in the grammar. One is why it says Heichaltzu me'itchem, it should say Heichaltzu. Another question is, what? Number 4, it says Heichaltzu, that's the name of the Mamar. According to the grammar, it should have said Heichaltzu. The difference is, Heichaltzu means all of you, arm yourself. Heichaltzu would imply only some of you arm himself. And in this case, it wasn't everybody, it was only 1,000 people from each tribe.
Heichaltzu is each one of you on yourself?
The other way around. Heichaltzu is all of you arm yourself. But in this case, it wasn't, so it should have stayed with a yud, Heichaltzu. And the second question, it says, Elef lamata, 1,000 people to each tribe. It should have said Elef mikol, from each tribe, not to each tribe. Again, this is the grammar. But if you remember, we once spoke about this, how the Rebbe Rashab explains that when a Rav teaches his students, it's so deep and so vast and so abstract that it could take the student 40 years to figure out what the Rav really meant. So the 40 years is analyzing and studying everything the Rav said, all the details. And all the sort of hidden things are hidden in these little nuances, an expression of something, a letter. So therefore the Mamar will do that, stop and think, why this letter, not that letter? And you realize that a lot of depth is hidden in that choice that was made. That the Torah wrote a lamed, instead of writing from each tribe, it writes to each tribe. So now we'll go to page 66. First question is, you'd have to write the definition, what is the klip of Midyan? The answer would be division and separation.
So, Rabbi, I missed the question.
Yes.
Sorry. I missed question 5.
Question 5 is, why does it say 1,000 people to each tribe? It should have said 1,000 people from each tribe. Page 66. The answer to the question, what is the clip of Midyan? Now he's defining it. It means division and separation, contention. This is all including in clip of Midyan. Number two is, again, the grammar. How does the Hebrew word midyan imply the nature of this klipa is? Because in Hebrew, modon, mem, dalad, vav, nun, means argument. Modon. Argument, to argue, which is separation. What? Mem, dalad, vav, final nun.
What's the shoresh of that word, Rabbi?
Modon,
So,
that might be the shorish. Modon, could be.
what means to argue?
Argue, yeah. What is the key difference between Kedusha and Klippa, and what is it that characterizes Kedusha? So the key difference is Kedusha is unity and Klippa is separation. What does it mean, number 4, that the 10 spheres of Kedusha are Hiskalos? What does that mean, Hiskalos? Inclusion. Each one includes the other 9. Number 5, what is the difference between the way Yaakov expressed himself and he said, Yeshli koil, I have everything, and the way Esav expressed himself, Yeshli Rav, I have a lot.
Call is inclusive.
Right, kol is inclusive. When you say a lot, the implication is a lot of different things, separation. Number 6, why was it that the original amount of Jews in Mitzrayim, which are the source of the whole nation, was 70? Right, it's the 7 midos, but each one includes all 10, so it's 70. What is Shviris HaKelim? Okay, we're not gonna write all that down. It's the breaking of the vessels in the world of Tohu. If you would have to say this in a simple way, it means that in the world of Tohu, there's light, there's godly light, which are the spheros, and light is always contained in vessels, in all the worlds, in Atzilus and Bria. But in the world of Tohu, because the light was so intense and there was so much going on, the vessels broke. So this would be compared to a person who's, God forbid, going through very strong, extreme things emotionally. As a result of that, something happens to the heart or to the brain, means the vessel can't contain the energy. It's too much. That's what happened in the world of Tohu. That's the mushroom. Number 8 is just to clarify confusion. Where are the kalim in the infrastructure of the 10 spheres? Is it above the 10, below the 10, or between the 10, or something else?
I'm glad you asked, Rabbi. That's a very good question.
I knew I'd get that response.
Wait, what are the 10 again?
10 spheres. 10 spheres of the world of Tohu. Or the 10 spheres, actually in every world, there's kalim. Where are the kalim? On the map.
I never heard of that.
Because it's so simple.
Each world, it drives me crazy at night. Oh.
Wait, Rabbi, this 10 includes the 7 meters and the 3 intellectual.
Right. But I'm asking, where are the vessels? What?
It's in there, like between there, like it's inside.
Right. It is the 10 spheres. It is the 10 spheres. The 10 spheres. 10 spheres each sphere consists of a light and a vessel. It's not outside of it. It's not above it. It's not below it. It is. If someone would ask you, where are the 10 spheres in the 10 spheres? What would be the answer? What do you mean? That is the 10 spheres. So the 10 spheres consist of light and a vessel. It's like asking a person has 10 faculties. Where in the infrastructure is the brain amongst the 10 faculties? It's one of the 10. But the 10 faculties, there's the physical organ, and there's the energy. So the organ is the brain, the other organ is the heart, and this organ is a hand, and that organ is an eye, an ear, a nose, a mouth, hands, and feet. And the energy that's functioning through the organ is the energy, is the light. So the 10 spheres consists, each sphere consists of two components, a light and a vessel. So when you say the word sphere, it's just a general term, but it really includes both, light and a vessel.
Rabbi, just a practical question on number 6.
Yeah.
Wasn't Asenath already in Mitzrayim? And if she was, why isn't she counted as one of the, why isn't it 71 and not 70?
Not sure. Not sure to answer that question. I have to look that up. Number 9, that's page 67. Why is division and separation considered as cause for Shviras HaKelim? Because the Shviras HaKelim is a result of each sphere being so intense that it can't tolerate the other sphere. Because each sphere was exclusive. Chesed was exclusive chesed. Gevura, exclusive gevura. And it did not include the other spheres, so they couldn't connect. And they clashed. How do we say that in short version? Because there was division, which means each sphere was exclusively its own, didn't include the other. Therefore, they clashed with each other. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, what is the spiritual significance of the 7 nations? Right, they're the 7 emotional klipas. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes of klipa. So the 7 attributes of klipa. Why is Midian not mentioned as one of the 7 nations? Is it lower? Is it higher? Is it a branch of one of the 7?
Higher.
Higher, it's a source, right? It's higher. Number 12 is, what is the reason for the answer to question 11? In other words, why is it the source? Why is it higher? Because division and separation is the source of all klipa.
Rabbi, if that's the case, what about Mitzrayim and Malach? What are they?
What are they? Where do they belong? They're also somewhere on the sidelines. Well, I mentioned in the beginning that Amalek and Midian are in competition. In some places it says Amalek is the source of all 7. In some places it says Midian is the source of all 7. So once we get to understand it more, I'll go into it. What is the difference between the two? But Amalek is also considered not one of the 7, but the source of the 7. But based on this mimer, I would say that Midian is the source of even of Amalek, is the source of the source. Mitzrayim, I don't know. I have to see where that fits in. Where does Mitzrayim fit in? I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything written clearly. Where is Mitzrayim in relationship to the other 7? So Could be we can look that up. That doesn't. It's hard to believe that there's no mimer that really talks about it and explains it. So the main point of this mimer is to describe the klipa of Amalek, what it's all about, and how it's different than how to describe the klipa of Amalek. Now we go to page 68. I said Amalek, Midjan. Just checking if everybody's awake, including myself. Okay. What is the definition of sinas chinam? Baseless hate. Hate that's not based on a reason. What is the spiritual root of sinas chinam? Or midjan. That's what he's saying. The clip of midjan, that's the source of this baseless hate. Number 3, if the person did absolutely nothing to warrant hate, why would his friend have sinas chinam? So then why does he hate him?
Just because he exists.
What? Right, so what? Yeshus. In other words, it doesn't, right, you said it doesn't do anything to him, but the other person takes away from this person's yeshus.
How do you spell it?
Which word?
Yeshus.
Yud Shin Vav Saf. Is it possible to have sinas chinam and have a reason for the hate?
No.
Yeah, the reason comes after.
Very good. Right. It is possible. It would still be sinas chinam, but the reason is really not a true reason. The reason is just I'm rationalizing in order to defend myself and in order to justify why I hate this person. But it's not the real reason. What I said in class was the proof is that when the reason is no longer there, he finds another reason. And when that reason goes away, there's another reason. When there's a child in a classroom that they're not paying attention, and the parents sit down with the principal or the teacher, so what's the problem? And the child says, because I'm sitting so far away in the back of the room, I can't hear the teacher good. Okay, we change your seat. 2 weeks later, nothing is any different. So what's going on? Why aren't you learning? I'm so close to the teacher's desk. I'm too close to the teacher. I can't concentrate. Okay, we'll give you another seat. And what now? I'm near the window, so I see all the things outside. It distracts me. Okay, we'll put you to another seat. And what now? The kid behind me is making noise and talking to me. After a few times, you finally realize it's not this and it's not that, it's not the other thing. You're just not into it. These are just excuses. That's all. There's a letter where the Rebbe writes about someone about anti-Semitism, and he says that it's not really based on reason. The Rebbe says in some places the reason why they hated Jews because they had so much money, and that's why everybody hated them. In other places they say they hated the Jews because they're the lowest class, they're poor and they're garbage and they're nothing. So which is it? Is it because they have millions of dollars and they're hiding it under the boards of their floor, or is it because they have no money? So the answer is the hate has no reason. The reason are just excuses to legitimize the hate. So how would you define yeshus or a person's a yesh? So that's a tough one. But I think to put into just a few little words, it would be someone who is how would we put it? What? I don't hear you. Right, an excessive self-awareness and self-focus, self-centered, self-focus.
Excessive self-obsession.
Yeah, any word you can think of. It's all that. The reason why I'm saying it because everybody is aware of themselves. I know who I am, where I am, but that's not what my focus is, and it's not excessive.
This leads me to another question now, like, if Hashem, the whole reason for Elohim is so that we can establish a sense of self. But you're saying in Midian, it's going too far.
No, the whole purpose is to have a sense of self that's bottled to Hashem.
Isn't that going?
And Midian is established a sense of self to be separate from Hashem. That's the whole difference. The difference between us, let's say, and angels were created in a way that they're, to begin with, they don't have their own identity. We were created to have our own identity, to submit this identity to Hashem and to connect it to Hashem. So the person takes this separateness to create an identity that's separate from Hashem. That's what it means, taking it too far. Yes, Hashem wants us to be humans. The new definition of a human is someone who has his own identity, but that's not that's not what my goal is, to establish my own identity. The Yesh is a person that it's all about establishing their identity. I just saw an interesting letter from the Rebbe. Was it a letter or a sikha? And I always thought about this, but I never saw that the Rebbe actually addressed it. It was about the fact that it says that every Yid, there are three character traits that define a Yid. Rachmanim, they're compassionate. Baishanim, they have shame. And Gerim L'Chasadim, they do acts of kindness. And the Rebbe explains, why does the Baishanim or the Rachmanim, why does the other characters come before acts of kindness? And he explains, because when you do acts of kindness, it has to be with bittul, not with yeshus. You can also be kind with yeshus, like, I'm exercising my authority. I'm giving you. You're inferior to me. You need me. And I'm the one who is sort of providing for you. That's not a good way of doing chesed. Then the Rebbe says, but who cares? When it comes to being kind, giving a person a sandwich, giving a person an apartment, giving a person clothing, what's the difference what you're thinking, what you're feeling? The bottom line is you're helping the other person. And by the way, that's even the halacha, that if you walk down the street and you lose money, and a poor person finds the money, you get the mitzvah of tzedakah with because your money went to a poor person. You had no intention to give it to him. In fact, you're all upset that you lost the money, but being that practically he got this money and it helped him, it's tzedakah. So the Rebbe says, so what's the difference if it's yeshus or not yeshus? And the Rebbe says something very powerful, and sometimes you see this. The Rebbe says that the person who does chesed because of yeshus, which means I'm doing the kindness because this satisfies my ego and inflates my ego, then if you in any way offend that person, they can turn into the most mean, sadistic person that you could imagine. Sometimes you find this with people who are in charge of certain funds of doing kindness and chesed, and they're in charge of it and they work on it day and night. So they must be extremely kind, because look how much time and energy they're spending on being helpful to others. And then suddenly, if you offend them in one way or another, they can turn and just tear you apart to pieces. How's that possible? Because the kindness is based on yeshus, not on bittul, which means bittul would mean I feel your pain and I have such a pleasure just helping another person. That's the right way to do it. The other way is, it's not about you, it's about me. This makes me feel good about myself. That's what it's all about. So that's yeshus, that whatever they do, if it's Torah, if it's mitzvahs, if it's kindness, everything they do, the focus is what it does for me and my identity. And my yeshus, that's what it means. Number 7 and 8 is really the part that's still missing from a clear understanding. And I tried to explain it a little bit. What does it mean that Yesh needs more space? What do you mean by space? To spread out. And the more space he has to spread out, the more his presence is reinforced. Maybe I want to explain it from another angle. Something which is not true, it's interesting, the more it's spread out, the bigger it is. And the less it's spread out, the smaller it is. For example, someone who creates a lie. The more people that accept your lie, that makes it bigger. If people don't accept your lie, or less people accept it, it makes it smaller. If no one accepts it, it becomes non-existing. Let's say people that deny the Holocaust. The more people accept that it never happened, that makes it bigger. The more people that come out and say that this is nonsense and it's a lie, and no one accepts that it's true, it never happened, no one accepts it, so it becomes nothing. Right? Something which is emes, no matter how much it spreads out, it doesn't become one iota bigger. The simple example is if 2 + 2 = 4. Imagine if you would write 2 + 2 = 4 down on every single blackboard in the world or whiteboard. Imagine you make a campaign that 2:30 in the afternoon, the whole world, all the 8 billion people should think in their minds 2 + 2 = 4, that moment. Would that make the principle of 2 + 2 = 4 bigger, more true? Absolutely nothing. And the reverse is also true. Imagine if it would be erased from every blackboard in the world, you would burn every arithmetic book that says 2 + 2 = 4. No one is allowed to say 2 + 2 = 4. You're not allowed to think 2 + 2 = 4. Will 2 + 2 = 4 become any less? So it's a very strange thing if you think of it, that there's something here that the more it spreads out, the bigger it is. Why? Because it's not something which is emes. So something which is not emes, the more it spreads out, it has more substance. It spreads out less, it has less substance. It's more about being accepted by someone else than the reality. But something which is emes doesn't need to be accepted or not accepted. It just is because it is. This is similar to the famous quote in Gemara, which is Istra belagina kish kish karya. You know what that means, right? It's similar to the English expression, which means an empty barrel makes a lot of noise. But in Gemara, it's not a barrel, it's a pushka. That something like this, if you have one coin and then you shake it, it'll make a lot of noise. But if this would be full to the top, it wouldn't make any noise. How does that make sense? If one coin makes so much noise, so much more should make more noise. So the answer is because it's empty, it makes more noise. The Gemara means to say that a person or something which is empty needs to make a lot of noise, because if there's no noise, it has no substance. So the more noise it makes, the more substance it has, because that's what it's all about, that people hear me, people think about me, people talk about me. But if something which is emes, I don't need someone to talk about it and to hear about it and to look at it. It just is emes in its own right. There's a beautiful story in Gemara where there was a sage that was blind, and they heard that the king is coming. Everyone ran to the main street to greet the king, and he was also standing there. And next to him was one of the prominent people of the Roman government standing outside. First, he was making fun of him. What are you doing here? You're blind. You can't see anyway. They had a discussion. And then at a certain point, he said to the blind sage, okay, stand straight, the king is coming, because they heard bugles and drums. And he said to him, no, that's not the king. He was very surprised. This carriage drives by. Sure enough, it's one of the ministers, not the king. And then another one is coming, and there's much louder noise and bigger drums. And again, now it is. Stand straight, the king is coming. He says, no, it's not the king. This happened 3 times. And then at a certain point, it was quiet. And he says to him, the blind sage says to that man, stand straight, the king is coming. And sure enough, there's the king. He said, how did you know? And he quoted a pasuk. First of all, it's known that kingdom on earth is a reflection of kingdom in heaven. And there's a pasuk, it says Hashem doesn't come with noise. He doesn't come with a lot of wind. He doesn't come with a lot of fire. He comes with quiet. There's a pasuk like that. So he said, I knew that if it's a lot of noise, it's one of the ministers. If it's quiet, that's the king. What does it mean? It means that something that has more depth doesn't need the noise. The noise is some sort of an indication that it's something that is lacking in depth. So it needs noise in order to become sort of have substance. Like I once told you, what would New Year's be like if you weren't allowed to do any fireworks? There'd be no New Year's. Rosh Hashanah doesn't need fireworks. Rosh Hashanah is a day there's a lot of very deep, profound things to think about and to work on. It's a new year and an avodah, tshuva. So, but something which doesn't have real substance needs ceremony, because without ceremony, there's nothing there. So this is a little bit of the same idea, not a little bit, it is the same principle, is that Yeshus needs to spread out. It needs to be received. It needs to be acknowledged by others, either people or something or someplace. But if it's not spreading out somewhere, then it has no real substance. But emes, bittul, doesn't need to spread out. It just is. I know this doesn't explain it completely, but just getting the idea. So this idea that people have a desire to be famous, to be known, to be talked about, to be looked at, everyone is talking about me, that pleasure is really coming from a place of Yeshus. A true person, a true tzaddik, not only doesn't look for that, doesn't need it. It would be the opposite. They don't want it. You know, I tell the story of a certain Rebbe that he once came to a town, and in those days there was a custom when they wanted to honor somebody, they would unhook the horses from the wagon, and the people would pull the wagon themselves to give honor. And the Rebbe is sitting with his son, and he says, I can't stand this. This is so, and his face turns white. He's starting to feel weak. He's about to faint. And he says, Tata, they're not here to give you honor. They're here to honor me. Take it easy. Calm down. They're here to honor me. And he could calm down. The next day he says to him, tell me, my son, why are they giving you so much honor? Well, I'm your son, after all. So the truth is that true tzaddikim, not only they didn't look for honor, to them they had an aversion to it, because it's the outward commotion is sort of not emes. That is an expression of something which is not true. Okay, to be continued. Number 6. Probably that's a hard one, so I skipped it. Let me see. You weren't supposed to catch it. I think 6 would go together with 7 and 8. That would,
Interesting that you said that emes doesn't need to be spread. The entire objective of Kolak is to spread the emes.
Right, I was waiting for that question. So how come Chabad makes so much noise? That it makes more noise than anybody else in the world. A fifth a tank. And the answer is because this noise is this is to attract the attention of people out there. There's a beautiful sikha about this, where the Rebbe brings a source regarding the Beis Hamikdash where we see this. If you remind me tomorrow, I'll give it over briefly.
Rabbi Majeski?
Yes, Esther.
You said there was a book that was Hebrew English.
Yeah, it just came out, published, and I ordered it to get it today. It's called Lessons in Heichaltzu, I guess. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay.
It's in English.
How would I get a copy of it?
I guess if you would call Sikhs in English, they would send it out to you.
Not Kahas?
Probably Kahas also. I'll tell you what, the person who's going to bring it to me today, let me ask him if he ships. I'm sure he ships it out, and I'll give you his number, and you can call them. We'll ship it out to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Actually, it's his wife is one of our students, and he sells sparring.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Who's that?
That's Esther.
Yeah, I know, but who's the one that sells?
Oh, his name.